I'm 61 years old now, but 6 months ago, I felt like I was already 80. I was always tired, sluggish, forgetful. My mind would drift in and out of clarity, and my stomach seemed impossible to flatten no matter what I tried. I was stuck. Every day felt like a battle to get through. I tried everything, new diets, exercise routines, but nothing seemed to work. I kept wondering if this was just what it meant to get older. Then, one evening, I was scrolling through YouTube, not expecting much when a video caught my eye. It was from a Harvard genetics professor named David Sinclair. I didn't know who he was, but his words immediately grabbed my attention. He said, "I'm 54, but my body feels like I'm 24. And here are 5 foods I absolutely avoid." I thought to myself, is that really possible? Could it be true that the way I've been eating all these years is the reason I feel so old? I watched the video twice that night. There were no ads, no gimmicks, just pure science. David explained how our genes, especially those related to aging like SRT1, could be switched on or off depending on what we eat. The more I listened, the more intrigued I became. This wasn't some quick fix scheme. This was a real, scientific approach to understanding aging. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I completely cleaned out my kitchen. I tossed out all the foods I thought were harmless, the ones I'd always eaten, and I started fresh, trying to avoid the 5 foods David had mentioned in his video. But here's the thing. I realized that anger or frustration wasn't going to help me. And you know what? It doesn't have to. There's a better way. I'm not here to argue or preach. Instead, I want to share with you 5 things that help me regain my energy and respect without getting angry or defensive. They're simple, practical changes that you can start applying today. Some of these changes might surprise you. Stick with me, because what I'm about to share could change your life too. The very first thing I cut out after watching that video from Dr. David Sinclair was refined sugar. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy. I've had a sweet tooth my entire life. I used to start my mornings with a flavored yogurt and a muffin, sometimes even sneak in a little candy bar in the afternoon. And don't get me started on soda. It was my go-to whenever I felt a little tired or stressed. But Dr. Sinclair talked about how sugar doesn't just add calories. It actually accelerates aging. He mentioned how sugar triggers inflammation, disrupts insulin signaling, and damages the mitochondria, the little powerhouses of our cells. I never thought about it like that. I used to think a little sugar won't hurt. Everyone has a sweet treat now and then. But he made it sound like sugar was silently attacking my body from the inside out. So, the next morning, I opened my fridge and got rid of all the sweetened yogurts. I threw out the soda cans in the garage. I cleared the pantry of cookies, processed granola bars, and anything that had more than 5 grams of sugar per serving. It was a bit heartbreaking, honestly. These are things I had grown up with. I still remember my dad giving me a Coke after mowing the lawn in the summer. It wasn't just food. It was tied to memories. The first week without sugar was rough. I'm not gonna lie. I had headaches, mood swings, and this weird sense of emptiness after meals. My body kept craving that quick hit of sweetness. In the evenings, I'd find myself staring into the fridge, just looking for something to satisfy that old urge. But I kept reminding myself of what Dr. Sinclair said, that sugar not only fuels chronic diseases like diabetes and heart problems, it also turns off the genes that help our cells repair themselves. About 10 days in, something started to shift. I began waking up feeling more rested. I used to wake up 2 or 3 times a night, drenched in sweat and tossing around. That stopped. I slept through the night for the first time in years. My mind also felt clearer, like a fog had lifted. I didn't get that afternoon crash where I needed a nap or another coffee. My energy became more steady, not jittery, not spiking and crashing, just steady and strong. And my skin, I didn't expect this. It started to look better. Less blotchy, less dry. People at church started asking if I'd been on vacation or something. My wife noticed too. She said, "Your eyes look brighter." That meant more than I can say. It wasn't just about weight loss, though I did drop a few pounds. It was the way I felt. More alive, more myself. And I realized sugar had been dulling that, like, background noise I never knew was there until it was gone. Now, when I want something sweet, I reach for berries, a little piece of dark chocolate, or just a hot cup of cinnamon tea. I retrained my taste buds, and honestly, I don't even crave the old stuff anymore. My grandson offered me a gummy worm the other day, and I smiled and said, "No thanks, buddy. I got my own kind of fuel now." Avoiding refined sugar was the first domino. Once I got through that, everything else started to change. It was like flipping a switch inside my body. And to think, it all started from one late-night YouTube video that challenged everything I thought I knew about food. If you had told me a year ago that I'd give up white bread, instant noodles, and white rice, I probably would have laughed and said, "Good luck with that." Those foods were staples in my daily life. Every morning started with a toasted white sandwich, sometimes peanut butter, sometimes eggs and cheese. It was just easy, you know? And when I was short on time or too tired to cook, a bowl of instant noodles or a big serving of rice was my go-to. Comfort food, fast, cheap, and filling. But after watching Dr. David Sinclair's video about aging, I realized those foods weren't doing me any favors. He explained how refined carbohydrates, things like white bread and pasta, spike your blood sugar and trigger insulin, which over time leads to inflammation, weight gain, and even accelerates the aging process at a cellular level. I never thought of a slice of bread that way before. To me, it was just lunch. But he made it clear, what seems harmless can quietly wear your body down over the years. What hit me hardest was when he said that repeated blood sugar spikes could actually damage the brain and reduce energy production inside your cells. I started connecting the dots. I'd always blame my post-lunch fatigue on age or poor sleep, but maybe it was what I was eating. So I made a decision. I didn't want to feel like I was slowly losing my spark. I didn't want to drag myself through the afternoons anymore. So I cleaned out the pantry again. I gave away the white rice. I stopped buying sandwich bread. I even tossed out my last stash of instant ramen, which I used to keep just in case. The first week, breakfast was the hardest to change. I wasn't sure what to eat that would still fill me up. I started with eggs, sometimes scrambled, sometimes boiled, and added a handful of spinach or avocado. Then I tried steel-cut oats with cinnamon and chia seeds. At first, I missed the crunch of toast, but my body started responding almost immediately. Instead of feeling sleepy after meals, I felt level. No crashes, no foggy head, just a smooth, steady kind of energy. And my blood sugar, I check it regularly since I'm pre-diabetic, started staying within a healthier range throughout the day. That was a big win for me. Before, I get spikes after lunch that would leave me drained. Now, I actually feel like taking a walk after eating instead of crawling to the couch. One change I didn't expect was how my cravings began to shift. Once I got used to eating more whole foods, like roasted sweet potatoes, quinoa, and leafy greens, the old stuff didn't taste the same anymore. I had a bite of white bread at a friend's house, and it just felt empty, like it wasn't doing anything for me. These days, I prep a batch of roasted vegetables and boiled eggs every Sunday. I keep whole grain bread in the freezer for emergencies, but I hardly ever touch it. I even learned how to make cauliflower rice, something I never thought I'd enjoy, and it's actually pretty good with a little garlic and olive oil. Looking back, giving up refined carbs felt overwhelming at first, but now it's second nature. My energy's better, my focus is sharper, and I feel like I've taken real control over how I age. It's not about being perfect. I still treat myself now and then, but now I eat with awareness. I understand how food makes me feel, not just in the moment, but long after. And to think, it all started with that one video. One doctor, one idea, and a sandwich I don't miss anymore. I grew up on sandwiches with deli meat. Salami, bologna, ham, those were lunchbox staples. Even as an adult, I kept the habit. Quick lunch, turkey slices on white bread, lazy dinner, a hot dog or two. Can't meat in the pantry for emergencies. It was convenient, tasty, and let's be honest, cheap. But then came that video from the Harvard professor, Dr. David Sinclair. I've been following him ever since I stumbled upon a podcast where he talked about reversing aging. In the video, he went deep into the science of aging and disease, and that's when he dropped a fact that made my stomach turn. Processed meats, yes, the ones I'd eaten for decades, were linked to cancer. Specifically, he explained how nitrites and nitrates, used to preserve meats and give them that pink color, can convert into compounds in the body that are carcinogenic. He wasn't dramatic about it, just calm, clear, and scientific. That almost made it worse. There was no hype, just facts. And that hit harder than any headline ever had. I remember pausing the video right there. I walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and looked at the stack of turkey slices I just bought. Then I opened the pantry. Cans of Spam, canned beef stew, a couple of hot dogs in the freezer. I stood there, realizing how much of my food fell into that processed meat category and how long I'd been eating it without thinking twice. That night, I tossed it all. I didn't even hesitate. I thought about my dad, who passed away from colon cancer in his early 70s. He loved his sausages and corned beef hash. Back then, none of us knew about nitrites or their risks. But now I did, and I wasn't about to ignore it. The next challenge was figuring out what to eat instead. I'll be honest, it took some adjusting. At first, I missed the saltiness, the chew, the quick meals. But I decided to keep it simple. I bought a pack of fresh chicken thighs, seasoned them with garlic and rosemary, and roasted them for the week. I made a batch of lentil salad with lemon and olive oil. I grilled some salmon on Sunday night and added it to a bed of greens for lunch the next day. Something amazing happened. After about a week without processed meats, my digestion improved. I felt lighter, not just physically, but mentally too. No more random stomach cramps. And I didn't feel that heavy, bloated feeling after lunch that used to make me want to lie down. Even better, I started feeling proud of my food again. It was colorful, fresh, real. When friends came over for lunch, they were surprised to see I'd made grilled chicken wraps with hummus and spinach instead of just tossing together a ham sandwich. "You've changed," one of them joked. And I had, but in the best way. Now, when I pass by the processed meat section at the grocery store, I don't even pause. It doesn't tempt me anymore. Not when I know what's in it. Not when I know how my body feels without it. And not when I finally realized that quick and easy shouldn't come at the cost of my long-term health. David Sinclair gave me the facts, but it was up to me to take action. Giving up processed meats was one of the first steps I took, and honestly, it was one of the easiest to stick with. Because once you feel the difference, you don't want to go back. And every time I grill a piece of salmon or cook up a pot of chickpeas with fresh herbs, I feel like I'm choosing a longer, healthier future. One meal at a time. For years, I thought I was making healthy choices in the kitchen. Like most people, I switched from butter to vegetable oil because that's what every commercial, every label, every heart-healthy guide said to do. Soybean oil, canola oil, they were everywhere, cheap and easy to use. I'd drizzle them into my pan without thinking twice. Then one afternoon, I was watching a video from Harvard genetics professor David Sinclair, and something he said caught me completely off guard. He explained how industrial seed oils, like the ones I've been using every single day, were high in omega-6 fatty acids, and that an excess of these could throw off the balance of fats in our body, triggering chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation, he said, is one of the silent accelerators of aging and disease. That hit me hard. I started thinking about all the little things I had just accepted as normal for my age. The achy joints in the morning, the brain fog that made it harder to concentrate in the afternoons, the low energy that seemed to creep in after every meal. I had chalked it up to getting older, but what if it wasn't just age? What if it was what I was putting into my body every day without even realizing it? I walked into the kitchen and pulled out every bottle of oil I had. There was soybean oil in the big plastic jug, canola oil next to the stove, even a salad dressing that listed vegetable oil as the first ingredient. I suddenly felt like I'd been tricked. I started reading more. I learned how most of these oils are extracted using high heat and chemical solvents, which damages the oil and creates compounds that aren't found in nature. The more I dug, the more I realized this wasn't food. It was manufactured. So I made a decision right then. I was done with seed oils. The very next day, I bought a bottle of extra virgin olive oil. The good stuff, cold-pressed, rich in antioxidants, the kind of oil that's been around for thousands of years. I also picked up a small jar of unrefined coconut oil for when I needed something more heat-resistant. Switching wasn't hard. It just took being mindful. I stopped buying salad dressings altogether and started making my own with olive oil, lemon juice, and herbs. I replaced my old frying oil with coconut oil for eggs or stir-fry. I even started roasting vegetables in olive oil instead of whatever vegetable oil blend I'd been using before. After a few weeks, something changed. I wasn't dragging in the afternoons like I used to. My skin looked a little clearer. The weird tightness I sometimes felt in my knuckles was gone. And best of all, my food tasted better. Real oil makes a real difference. One day, a friend came over while I was cooking and asked why my kitchen smelled so good. I smiled and said, "It's olive oil. I kicked the seed oils out." That's the thing. These small switches add up. We think aging has to come with discomfort, with fatigue, with mental fog. But sometimes it's not age, it's inflammation. And sometimes the fix isn't a pill. It's swapping one bottle on your shelf for another. Thanks to that one video from Dr. Sinclair, I finally looked closer at the oils I was using, and I haven't looked back since. Every time I drizzle olive oil over roasted vegetables or blend up a homemade dressing, I feel like I'm feeding my body something it actually recognizes. Something real, something healing. And maybe, just maybe, that's how we turn back the clock, one honest ingredient at a time. Out of all the foods I've cut out, this one was by far the hardest. Not soda, not white bread, not even the seed oils. It was the snacks. For as long as I can remember, I've had this habit. After dinner, I'd settle into the couch, flip on the TV, and reach for a bag of chips. Sometimes cookies, sometimes crackers. It didn't matter what it was, as long as it was crunchy, salty, or sweet. That little reward at the end of the day became part of my routine. A way to unwind, to relax. But it wasn't doing my body any favors. I used to tell myself, it's just a small snack. It can't hurt. But I always felt bloated afterward. My sleep would get interrupted. And worst of all, once I started, I couldn't stop. One handful turned into half the bag. One cookie became 4. It was like flipping a switch in my brain that told me to keep eating, even when I wasn't hungry. Then one evening, I came across a clip from Dr. David Sinclair, the Harvard genetics professor who looks years younger than his age. He was talking about how processed snacks, especially those high in sugar, salt, and refined oils, actually rewire the brain. They hijack our natural hunger signals and lead to chronic inflammation, insulin spikes, and even damage to the cells that keep us youthful. He said something that stuck with me. The modern snack industry is designed to keep you eating, not to nourish you. That night, I looked down at the half-empty bag of chips in my hand and realized he was right. I wasn't eating because I needed energy. I was eating because I was addicted to the feeling. That hit me hard, and it made me want to change. So I made a rule for myself. No more packaged snacks in the house. If it came in a crinkly bag and had more than 5 ingredients on the label, it didn't come home with me. At first, it felt like a punishment. I missed that comforting crunch during my nightly shows. But I didn't give up snacking. I just changed what I snacked on. I started roasting my own unsalted cashews in the oven with a pinch of cinnamon. I bought dried apricots and dates to satisfy the sweet tooth, and I always kept a bowl of fresh berries or grapes in the fridge. The first few days were rough. I craved the salt, the grease, the mindless munching. But something unexpected happened by the end of the first week. My cravings got quieter. Suddenly, a handful of cashews was enough. I felt full, not stuffed. My stomach didn't feel heavy, and I wasn't waking up groggy or bloated. I actually looked forward to my new snacks. They tasted real, clean, and slowly, I started to lose that anxious pull toward the pantry every night. I also noticed something else. My energy during the day got steadier. My mood felt more balanced. I didn't have those late afternoon crashes that used to send me looking for something sweet or salty. And it wasn't because I'd started a new diet. It was because I stopped feeding my body junk and started giving it real food, even in the little moments. Now, when I sit down to watch something in the evening, I still reach for a snack. But it's different. It's intentional. I'm not trying to fill a hole. I'm simply enjoying a bite of something that supports me. And honestly, I feel better than I have in years. I used to think I couldn't live without chips or cookies in the house. Now I know I'm better off without them. Sometimes the biggest changes come from the smallest habits. And for me, this one habit, changing what I snack on, has made me feel younger, clearer, and more in control than I ever thought possible. 3 months ago, I didn't expect anything miraculous. I just wanted to feel a little better. But within 3 weeks, I noticed I was waking up with more clarity in the mornings. I didn't need coffee to feel human. I wasn't dragging myself through the day anymore. By the end of the second month, My wife told me my skin looked healthier, rosier, more alive. At my checkup, the doctor said my blood lipid levels had dropped significantly. That was the first time in years I'd heard something positive in that office. Now, 3 months in, I'm sleeping deeper. My digestion is regular. I don't feel the need to nap in the afternoon. And for the first time in over 2 decades, my body feels light. Not just in weight, but in energy, like I've shed something heavy I didn't even know I was carrying. David explained it in a way that made perfect sense. Our bodies are constantly bombarded with inflammatory triggers: sugar, bad oils, ultra-processed foods. When we stop feeding ourselves these toxins day in and day out, our system finally gets a chance to repair itself. It's not about adding more pills or superfoods. It's about removing the things that are quietly damaging us. He mentioned genes like SGRT1 and SGRT3, longevity genes that get activated during intermittent fasting and a clean diet. They go quiet when we keep stuffing ourselves with junk. But when you eat right, those genes wake up and go to work. And honestly, I could feel it. Not just mentally, but physically, emotionally. Something shifted. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a dad, a granddad. But I can say this with all my heart. I feel like I've turned back the clock 30 years. Not because of skincare or supplements, but because I finally changed what I eat. If you're tired all the time, if you feel heavy or unwell and can't figure out why, maybe it's not your age. Maybe it's your diet. Watch David Sinclair's video. And if it resonates, start small. Cut out the soda. Skip the cookies. Say no to that late night snack. That's how I began. And if this message made you think, share it with someone you love. Maybe your husband, maybe your mom, or maybe just yourself on a tough day. Age is just a number, but health, that's a choice.